Welcome to What Work Teaches. My name is Wayne Harrison and I'll be talking you through in this video how to use the What Work Teaches platform to help you find out if interventions work in your school. This project is funded by the North East Combined Local Authority to work with Education Durham to help develop the concept of a North East evidence base for what works in education. We're working with schools to identify micro practices to see if these can be replicated across other schools to identify best practice and to see if these interventions work in the context of your school. How do we support teachers? Over the last 3 years, we've been developing the concept of school-led micro-trials to help teachers to find out and set up if interventions work in your school. We realise that time is the most important barrier when it comes to any teacher. So what we've done is we've condensed this down into 3 short videos to help you understand, firstly, how to use the platform, and then a second video which goes through the research evidence and the intervention, and then a third video that just explains how to implement this in your school. We then provide you with a downloadable research protocol. This is about 4 pages which just goes through step by step. This is how the research is conducted. We then have a resource folder which contains everything you need to be able to run the intervention in your school. And then we've developed a trial wizard, which takes the pain out of actually finding out how interventions work. In that the trial wizard analyzes your data that you input and then provides an instant impact report at the end of the trial. So you can see how this has worked. But what do we mean by robust evidence? So what we do is we provide an intervention. But what we do as a company is that we help you to create a control group. So in order to find out if something works in the context of your school, you need something to compare it to. So if your school is a 2-form entry, then what you would do is you would pick 2 classes, for example, in year 3. Both classes would complete the pre-assessment, and then one is the intervention, one is the control. So the intervention group then completes that intervention, the control continues as normal, and then both classes do the post-assessment. And at the end of this, if it's proved to be successful, then the control group will then receive that intervention moving forward. So it allows you to actually find out if something works in your school. If you're a single form entry, then what we do is we do targeted interventions. So this is the same process, but you identify a group of students rather than class, and then the students are allocated to intervention and control. And because the trials only last 5 to 6 weeks, then it's not being withheld for more than a short period of time. But this allows you to find out, does this intervention show promise in your school? And then you can then use this moving forward. If it doesn't work, then you just don't use it. So how do you use the platform? So for each of the trials that we've set up, for each of the interventions, you have a unique code, which you then put into the top right-hand corner. And then once you've inputted the code, it will upload the trial. So in this example, it's a spelling trial. And then you go sign up. And next it goes to the teacher cockpit. So this is the first video that you're obviously watching now, which just explains how to use the platform. The next video, which is about 5 minutes long, just goes through the intervention and then a video for the implementation. We then ask you to download the research protocol. And this acts as a record of the research that you're conducting in your school, which can go towards your professional development. And then we ask you to download the resource folder. In the resource folder, it contains an Excel spreadsheet, and this is because we don't include any personalized details from any learners on our platform. So what we ask you to do is to download this, and then it will allow you to link an anonymized student ID who's on the platform to a student in your classroom. The next thing you do is you select the start date and then the end date. It tells you in the protocol how long the trial should last. And then you randomize. And because this is a class level randomization, you basically put the name of your class in, the number of students. I'm only putting 5 in just so that I don't have to type in lots of data, but you would then put in the next class and then you would put 5 in, or the number of students that you have. And then you go allocate. And then it allocates one class to the control and one to the intervention. The next thing you do is you complete the pre-assessment task, and this is included in the videos that explains how to do the pre-assessment task, and if there's any resources needed, it's just in the resource folder. Complete the task and then you input the scores. And ideally, let us know if any of the students, it's anonymized, or pupil premium or free school meal status. And then you do the same for the control. If you have large classes, it's quite useful to have a second teacher to read the scores out for you while you input. It just makes it a little bit quicker to work as a team. And then quickly check that they're correct, and then you run the trial. And then that's it on the teacher's platform. You continue to run that intervention for the intervention group, and then at the end of the 5-6 week trial, you then complete the post-assessment, and then you repeat the process. You put the post-assessment data in. And again, it does help if you have someone who can just read the data out while you input it. Then you analyze the results. Before you start the analysis, we do ask you if you can just complete the quick process evaluation. This just tells us how the intervention has been delivered in your school and allows us to get some feedback. And then you click Analyze. And then the platform runs an analysis and generates a report to explain to you how this has worked in your school. And right at the very end, you'll see the data that you've inputted as a record. And then that's it. You've just completed a micro-evaluation. But what we're looking to do, what worked is, every single time a teacher replicates, we then aggregate this data to build an evidence base. So where we've got study 1, 2, 3, 4, this is just the replications from the teachers. And every single time it runs, it gives us the effect size. We just aggregate the data together. So the more replications we have, the more confident we can feel that the intervention shows promise that you can use it in schools. So that's what we're building at What Worked Education. We often get asked, is it ethical to withhold an intervention from control group students? Well, we use a waitlist design so that the pupils who are in the control, if the intervention shows promise, you will just use it with them after. The trials that we run, typical practice that we're using from other schools. So it's nothing that the students wouldn't normally use. It's a simple practice. And the trials generally only last 5 to 6 weeks. So you're only withholding it for a short period of time. And finally, we use anonymized data. So none of the personalized data from the students goes onto our platform. It's all anonymized. So head teacher consent is often sufficient to take part in the studies. And the last thing I'll cover very quickly is data integrity. So our mission is to create a teacher-led evidence base that professionals can use to help inform decisions they make about teaching and learning in their school. Therefore, the evidence is only as good as the data that the teachers input. So please just make sure that you follow the random assignment and that the data you enter is valid. So just before you click submit, just check through to make sure that it's correct. And as fellow teachers replicate the evaluation, we aggregate this data into a cumulative evidence base. So the next steps is to watch the intervention video to find out how this works in your school.